Go. All right. We have the parotid salivary gland right back here. We have the submandibular salivary gland right under these lymph nodes. Then in the oral cavity, we have the hard palate, the soft palate, the tongue, and it's rough because of the filiform papillae. The three regions of the pharynx are the oropharynx, which is back here at the back of the oral cavity, the nasopharynx, which is under the soft palate going up into the nasal cavity, and the laryngopharynx, which goes down into the esophagus. And the esophagus is found just below the trachea here. So I'm holding the trachea and the probe is in the esophagus. There is a little flap of cartilage here that acts like a lid and prevents food and fluid from entering the larynx. So that's the epiglottis. This is the larynx here. The larynx is going to be the voice box. It's made up of lots of types of cartilage. The two main ones are the thyroid cartilage, the big shield-like cartilage above the cricothyroid muscle, and then below it is the cricoid cartilage, which basically is shaped like a ring. Then we have the trachea here with its C-shaped cartilage rings. The thyroid gland, this cat, unfortunately, it has been removed. There's going to be two little brown lobes, one on this side and one on that side. Alright, as we move on down, we have within the thoracic cavity, right up against the wall here, the parietal pleura. The visceral pleura would be on the surface of the lungs. These are the lungs here. 3 lobes on one side, 3 lobes on the other. This is the heart, and the heart is within a pericardial sac, which has been cut and pushed behind the heart here. Very tough connective tissue. And just superior to the heart is the thymus gland. Now this is going to be really big on young cats, and it shrinks up as the cat ages. It's the same thing in humans as well. As far as the heart, we see the auricles, the right and left auricles, the little elephant ears. We also see coronary arteries, which are going to be pink, and coronary veins, which are going to be blue. We'll move on down. We have the diaphragm, this thick respiratory muscle. And then we move on the underside of the diaphragm, and we are in the abdominal pelvic cavity. Now up against the wall here of the abdominal pelvic cavity, that shiny membrane is called the parietal peritoneum. The visceral peritoneum would be on the surface of these organs. Just below the diaphragms, you can find it here, it's a little fat. Right there is the falciform ligament, and that attaches the liver here to the underside of the diaphragm. The liver is huge, takes up a lot of the volume here in the abdominal area, and tucked within it is the gallbladder right there. It has a different texture. If we look under the liver, we'll see this green duct right there. That is the common bile duct that is going to deliver bile to the duodenum. Now over on this side, pull that back a little bit. We can just see the esophagus as it comes through the esophageal hiatus in the diaphragm. And where it attaches to the stomach, that would be the cardiac sphincter or the lower esophageal sphincter. This part of the stomach here is called the cardiac region. The part that comes to the left and is kind of rounded is called the fundus. This main part of the stomach is called the body. And then as we go on to the small intestine here, that's the pylorus. Okay, so that area is the pylorus. Within the stomach, we see some worms in this case, and the rugae, the surface area modification that we have here so that the stomach can expand. Now, as far as the small intestine, you need to know the 3 parts. So the part that is near the stomach here is called the duodenum. I'm going to move on down to the large intestine. This is the cecum right here, and the part that's attached to the cecum is the ileum. So basically, any of this other part, at least as far as our practical, I'll pin to, that would be the jejunum. Right here in the curvature along the curvature of the stomach and the curvature of the duodenum, we have this glandular organ. This is the pancreas. The small intestine itself has this extensive mesentery, which looks like saran wrap, has blood vessels in it. So as the blood vessels absorb the nutrients, there's also the lymphatic vessels here. They carry then and transport those nutrients to the liver and then to the remaining part of the circulatory system. Going back to the cecum, remember this is the blind-ended pouch of the large intestine. Where the ileum attaches, it would be the ileocecal valve. Then we have the ascending colon. Manipulate it a little bit. Ascending as it comes up. It bends here near the liver. That's called the hepatic flexure. It comes across to the left of the body. That's called the transverse colon. It bends again here near the spleen. That's the splenic flexure. And then it descends and it comes down to the sigmoid colon and rectum. Speaking of the spleen, it's on the left side. It's this dark brown, very tender organ here. On either side, we have the kidneys. So here's the left kidney, but I'm going to show you all the right as well, so you can see the renal fascia. It's a little messy, but basically the kidney is just almost vacuum sealed against the abdominal pelvic wall here. What holds it in place is the renal fascia. And just deep to the fascia, and you can see it a little bit right there, is the renal adipose. It's just some fat that is under the fascia and on top of the kidney. Now, when that's cleared, the kidney looks like this. And immediately on the surface, we have this fibrous renal capsule. So I'm going to pull back on the renal capsule right there. Okay, that's the renal capsule on the surface of the kidney. Now, when you open up the kidney, you have the cortex, which is the outer part. This is where all those renal corpuscles were. You have the medulla, which is the deeper part. And then right at the middle there, it looks better on this side, you have the renal pelvis. This is where the urine collects. Putting this all back together, we see the hilum, the indentation on the outer surface. And at the hilum, you have the renal vein taking blood away. Underneath it, you have, clean it up a little bit, the renal artery. Let's do it this way. Renal artery right there. It's bringing oxygenated blood into the kidney. And you also have the ureter. And the ureter is transporting that urine all the way down to the urinary bladder here. Now, exiting the body here, out of the urinary bladder, is the urethra. That's going to transport the urine out of the body. You get everything?